So I'm Shelley Johnson, and that was Deanna that you heard from a minute ago. So glad to have her on today to help with this particular topic. It's good to see familiar names in the attendee list. So welcome, Dawn, Pat, Paul, Ray, glad to see all of you. So feel free to chat your questions, and I've got some polling questions as well throughout this. I expect we've got about 20 minutes of material or so to talk about, and then definitely have the time to hang around for additional questions and answers. And we've also are going to have Melinda Lane from our office on here as well. Melinda's done a little research in this area along with Deanna, so they may be better able to answer questions than I am on this particular topic. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the first polling question, mainly just to give us a little bit of time here on letting other people hop on. I know sometimes when it comes time to get a video started or a webinar started, you think you're all ready to go, and then technology slows things down for a few minutes. So there, Leia's joined us as well. So if you're in front of a computer and can participate in the poll, it's certainly not required, but I thought it would be interesting to get a little bit of feedback from everyone on how things are going so far. I know several of you we've talked to and have a pretty good idea of the impact. So certainly different times. I told our team this morning, you know, here it is April 14th, and I think it's the calmest April 14th I've probably had since about 1990. After that, I started working in public accounting, and April's never been the same since. So for us, it's been a real shift in how we do things in the spring around here. Not all bad. It's been nice to have a little bit of less nose to the grindstone on actual deadline things, but it has been busy at the same time, helping everybody navigate a lot of unknowns. You know, here we'll go ahead and we'll put out a webinar like this, and within a day or two, sometimes even later that same day, there's been an update or something has changed. So that's why it's always important we try to reference the date in these. So I'm going to end the poll, and then I'm going to give you a brief update on a couple of things. I'll share the results here. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of an update on just some general things. And Deanna and I are doing this from two different locations, so bear with us as we kind of navigate through things. All right, so brief update on the payroll protection plan and the economic injury disaster loans through the SBA. Still getting obviously a lot of questions on these. We've walked a lot of clients through the process to apply. Again, the PPP, you apply through your local bank. The EIDL, you apply through the SBA. We are hearing of some funds starting to be dispersed in both. I have not actually heard of any clients getting those funds, but a lot of the other groups I'm in with other CPAs and other tax strategists, there's starting to be some chatter coming in. The bank gets all of the information together on the PPP. They submit it over to SBA. SBA goes through their approval process. And once the SBA approves it, then the bank has 10 days to get with you and get those loan documents signed. So you do want to be checking your emails. I know KeyBank, I have seen like a little status type thing where you can log in and actually see the progress. So some of the banks have that activity. It seems like the ones that have a little bit further in the process are those local banks, and some of the bigger banks have been a little bit slower. So just encourage you to, your bankers are still swamped, but they are the ones that are going to be the key to getting that PPP processed. On the EIDL, the biggest change that we've heard in that piece, this is the one that has the $10,000 grant up front. Well, regulations came out last week that is going to be $1,000 per employee, capped at $10,000. This is the one that you apply straight through the SBA. And I have not heard much in our group from updates. I am hearing that other people around the country are starting to see those funds show up in their bank account, but no personal connection to anybody that's had one of those go through. And if you are still in the process of applying and figuring out what's going to be best for you, please reach out. We'll be glad to talk with you one-on-one and work you through that process. The one other piece that I want to say in regards, especially to the payroll protection, you can apply for both of these, payroll protection and EIDL. If you're going through the payroll protection plan and you expect to be able to qualify to have a good chunk or all of that forgiven, then you do not want to do any of the payroll tax credits. If you do payroll tax credits, that's going to negate you being able to ask for forgiveness on the PPP. So again, I don't want to spend time here getting into the weeds on those things. We'll be glad to set up times to chat one-to-one on that. Okay. Yeah, and Ray, SBA has been super slow on that piece of it. And like I said, I've heard of a few around the country starting to show up in bank accounts, but nothing local here. All right, Deanna, I'm going to turn it over and let you chat a little bit about the unemployment options and benefits.
All right, so I've done some research the last couple of days, and we're going to kind of go over the federal and state programs, how this is funded, and now what's available for business owners, self-employed, independent contractors, and gig workers in the economy. So what is unemployment? Unemployment is also referred to as unemployment insurance, as resources provided by both the state and the federal for workers who have either been laid off or their hours have been reduced. Unemployment funds are raised through unemployment insurance taxes, which are paid by employers and collected by the state and federal government on a quarterly basis. The funds are collected and put into an unemployment insurance trust to be distributed when needed. Unemployment insurance tax is paid on each employee's wages by the employer up to a maximum annual amount. Since 2011, in Indiana, that amount, known as the taxable wage base, has been stable at about $9,500. Under current state laws, they will remain the wage base until 2020. However, it is possible that the law and the amount could change. The current federal amount is $7,000. Just recently, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance was recently passed by the Indiana State Congress to provide further assistance to those who have financially been impacted by the COVID-19 virus. It provides additional aid and relief in addition to the already in place state unemployment insurance benefits.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump on here for just a second and elaborate a little bit on that employer piece. So unemployment taxes, the way those are funded, you as an employer, for each employee at the beginning of the year, you pay an Indiana unemployment tax rate and a federal unemployment tax rate on those wages. For Indiana, once your employee has been paid $9,500 in taxable compensation, then you don't pay any continuing unemployment tax on them for the rest of the year. So that's why it may feel like the first quarter of the year you're paying a lot of unemployment tax. You are. That's when people that are employed all year, that is being assessed to you, the employer. The federal unemployment tax is only on the first $7,000 of wages, so not quite as much bite there. And if you're up to date with your Indiana and paying in your Indiana timely, then the federal unemployment works out to be about $56 a person, maybe even that $72 range. it's pretty low. Indiana's a little bit higher. The highest rate tends to be a little over 5% on that first 9,500 of wages. If somebody's new starting out in business, it's closer to about 2.7%. And if you've been established and you've not had a lot of unemployment claims against your business, then it can be a relatively low unemployment rate. So don't panic. If you do have employees that are going to be going on to unemployment, yes, your rates may go up, but it's only going to be going up on that first $9,500 of wages. So I will turn it back over to you, Deanna, and get the slide advanced here.
All right, so who is eligible for unemployment insurance benefits? And what are the requirements? So Indiana will look at a 1-year base period of an employee's work history and earning to determine the eligibility. For the state of Indiana, they will look at the first 4 quarters of the past 5. For those who are applying for unemployment benefits between now and July 4th, they will look at all 4 quarters of 2019. Within those 4 quarters, you must have made at least $4,200 during the whole period. You must have earned at least $2,500 in the last 6 months of the base period, and in the entire base period, you must have earned at least 1.5 times your wages in the highest paid quarter. I know this is a lot of information. Don't worry, we are recording this. So, reasons for being unemployed have to be no fault of your own. So what that means is it includes being laid off, lost your job in a reduction in force, or got downsized for economic reasons, or received reduced work hours are all eligible reasons. If you're fired for a good cause and you quit your job, then these are not reasons that would be deemed valid when requesting unemployment. The Indiana Department of Workforce Development does look at each case on a case-by-case basis, especially during times like these where individuals have been impacted by the COVID-19. Able and available to work able and willing to work while also looking for new employment is the last requirement. If you're offered a suitable position, you must take it. Normally, the Indiana Department Workforce Development tracks this through weekly vouchers that help report hours worked, wages earned, and job opportunities that are being submitted on a weekly basis in order to continue receiving unemployment aid. The Indiana Department of Workforce Development is only asking for individuals to track hours that they worked and if they earned any money during the week. You do not need to actively be searching for work at this time due to COVID-19. The Indiana Department of Workforce Development will provide a date of when normal voucher tracking procedures are to be followed. The biggest thing this has affected business owners when having to close businesses during 2019 is that generally self-employed, independent contract workers, and gig economy workers do not qualify for general unemployment. With the pandemic unemployment assistance that was recently passed with the CARES Act, federal aid has been extended to those roles. All right, so
our Schedule C self-employed folks that yes, you pay FICA and Medicare on your taxable income, but you have not traditionally paid into the unemployment fund being self-employed on your own wages. So this is where the opportunity to obtain some unemployment coverage has been expanded.
All right, so the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, so PUA, creates a temporary federal unemployment insurance program for individuals who otherwise are not eligible. So exactly what Shelley just said. This would include those working who are self-employed, contractors, gig economy workers, whose income has been affected by COVID-19 and would otherwise be working during these times. With traditional unemployment benefits, the normal time frame to receive benefits is 26 weeks. With the PUA, an additional 13 weeks have been provided through federal financing for individuals, and this will go until December of 2020. Starting on April 20th, for individuals who qualify for PUA, an additional $600 will be provided on top of what is already provided through state unemployment benefits. Who is eligible for PUA? If employees are eligible for any state or federal unemployment benefits, meet the conditions related to being unemployed, partially unemployed, or unable to work due to COVID-19, and are not able to telework, so work from home, or are not receiving any paid leave. The biggest thing that the PUA provides is available aid to the self-employed business owners, employees who are 1099 contracted, or those who are gig economy workers. So that's the biggest thing, and you'll hear that repeated throughout this webinar. So some frequently asked questions. What is the unemployment formula? If eligible to receive unemployment in Indiana, then the benefit rate would be 47% of your average weekly wage. Your total wages earned during a 52-week base period divided by 52 gets you the average. The minimum benefit available is $50 a week, and the maximum is $390 a week. So that's roughly, if you earn a little bit more than $43,000 a year, your maximum weekly benefit through unemployment is $390. If my employees' hours are reduced, but they are still able to work, can they apply for unemployment? Everyone is able to apply for unemployment. The Department of Workforce Development looks at scenarios on a case-by-case basis to see if they are able to receive benefits. If employees are working part-time and they are receiving less than what they would receive on unemployment, then they can receive the difference of the two. If the reduced hours are because of COVID-19, then the PUA's additional $600 will still be applied to the benefits they receive from unemployment while also working part-time. If what they earn is more than what their unemployment benefits would be, then they don't apply for either one. What about if I must temporarily lay off employees due to COVID-19? Employees are eligible for unemployment if this happens, as long as they've earned enough wages to set up a claim and meet the weekly eligibility criteria. Your employees must stay connected to you so that when you are ready to reopen, they can accept their previous jobs. Is there federal aid outside of state-provided unemployment? The PUA program provides relief to individuals who would not normally qualify for regular state unemployment benefits. It would typically be working if it wasn't for COVID-19. This happens a lot. What if I live in Indiana but work outside of the state? So this is very common for individuals who work along the state borders or have a lot of travel requirements in their job. If you live in one state but work and earn a wage in another, you will need to file unemployment with the state that you work in. Unemployment insurance taxes are paid by your employer, so what Shelley had mentioned earlier. So the biggest question that a lot of people are asking are unemployment benefits taxed? So if you want to hit that one more time. So yes, so make sure that you set aside money to pay taxes in the spring of 2021. Since they're not taken out up front, you're going to need to pay them on the back end.
You can elect to have some withholding on your unemployment benefits. However, it may not be enough when we stack that taxable income on top of the other income on your individual tax return. So do be prepared that this is taxable for both federal and state.
So what questions do you guys have? I know that a lot of people had questions prior to unemployment, if reducing hours for employees, if you're self-employed, what options were available. And I think we've covered those, but if other questions have come up, please ask them. And then we are working remotely, but that doesn't mean we can't be reached through Listio with questions that might come up later after you've looked at other resources.
I'll launch our other poll question here.
Okay.
And while you're taking a minute to answer that, I think it is a hard decision on unemployment for your employees. In some cases, if you're in the type of business that's been told to close and it's just not feasible to pivot and do something different in how you deliver product or services, then it makes quite a bit of sense to let the employees file for unemployment. If it's more a case of reduced hours, you know, I think you just have to look at it on an employee by employee basis. Do you do a reduction across the board for everyone, or are there certain ones that maybe it makes more sense depending on those job roles, how you handle that? You know, regardless of how much of this force is outside of our control, it's still a deep psychological impact, even if it's a temporary furlough. And so I think those are some of the things you have to weigh. You know, what type of cash do you have to support payroll if you keep them on, depending on how long it takes to get the PPP money. So it is a lot to consider. And again, you know, I encourage you, all of us are still working remote. You may hear our pets and kids make noise or spouses make noise in the background when you talk to us, but we are more than willing to listen and be a sounding board as you talk through these type of things. So I will share our poll, and I know there's another question that came in, so I will take a look at that. Let's see. Okay, I've got it. Let me read here. So yes, this is one of the changes with the pandemic unemployment. If you are self-employed, and Deanna, Melinda, they're eligible for both federal and state if they're self-employed. And so this is where there's a change, because under normal circumstances, let's say you know, you're a hairdresser, self-employed, and the shop where you work maybe had to close for remodeling or something. Well, that normally you would not be eligible to apply for unemployment in that type of scenario. But because this has been declared the pandemic and federal disaster, that is what has made these funds eligible. So yes, my understanding is that self-employed will be eligible for both federal and state benefits. As you can imagine, the system was not set up to process that type of activity, and the state has really had to pivot quickly to make those adjustments. And in fact, I just noticed an update today that certain days of the week we won't be able to go into the unemployment website to process regular quarter end type reporting that we do as from a payroll standpoint, because they are doing changes and diverting resources to get these type of claims through. So that was probably more than you really cared to know about the whole process, but just wanted to give you an idea of the impact. So, and Ray, if I've not answered your question, you can touch base with us later. All right, any other questions? I think we've looked at everything. Deanna, Melinda, anything that we haven't gone over?
No, I think Ray brought up a good point of having to lay off 2 part-time staff. They would be eligible for unemployment. And these are resources that you could share with them, because I know it's a lot to navigate, especially if you're not familiar with the application process requirements. So for those 2 part-time staff that have been laid off due to a slow in business because of COVID-19, they would be eligible for the additional $600 by the PUA. And once again, that'll start on April 20th for the state of Indiana, and then it'll be retroactive back until, I believe, March of 29. So they are going to pay back the weeks that people have been affected by this. Especially yourself, I know that as a self-employed, it could be a little difficult navigating this. And if you've got questions, don't hesitate to reach out. All of these resources, so if you want to change to the next slide.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Sitting here reading comments and questions.
No, understandable. These are 2 great resources. Literally all the information that we've shared with you have come from these. The Department of Workforce Development last Friday, I believe, hosted a live Facebook webinar that ask pretty much these same questions. They go into a lot more detail on the employee side of it and not the employer. But definitely check these out. They go into more detail of general questions. They have a large, I think, 4-page PDF on frequently asked questions that they update regularly. And like I said, this is a time frame that all of us are not familiar with. We haven't navigated scenarios like these as business owners, as employees, basically as a community in general. So we're here to answer these questions. If something wasn't answered, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll do some of the research, or at least help guide you in the right direction to get the answers that you're looking for.
Hey, can I jump in just one quick thing? I answered a couple of questions on one of our out-of-state people, and you would need to probably go through your local unemployment office in your state to get those PUA benefits, because those are going to be administered through those local offices for the Fed. That was a specific question, so I just want to make sure if you were out of state, out of Indiana, don't go here, go to your state for unemployment.
Thank you. Yeah, big clarification there. So
yeah, we didn't list off 50 some different websites there. So, and there is overlap in the sense that if you're self-employed, you know, PPP may be an option for you as well. It has a little bit different hoops. It's calculated a little bit different, or the unemployment. So, you know, I think you just kind of have to think through and talk through with us what the options are and what may be the best scenario for you.
So I'm pretty sure if there's no more questions, that'll wrap up today's webinar. You know how to get a hold of us. Licio is the best way to get answers to your questions as soon as possible. Like we said, just one day at a time.
All right, everybody, take care, wash your hands, and we'll be back Thursday with another update if there's been anything new, and we'll gladly take questions as well at that point in time. So have a good afternoon. Thank you.